All right, you are at video lesson 1A here, okay? And you should be on the back page of your guided notes for today, okay? There should be two graphs and two equations that you have to graph. Okay, this first equation here, I don't want you to write anything. I want you to just put your pencil down and just listen to what you're seeing here. Or just listen and watch, obviously. Okay, so we've been doing a lot with y equals mx plus b, okay? With m being our slope and b being our y-intercept, okay? Now, normally if I ask you to graph this, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to go ahead and make a table, okay, and do x's and y's and plug in your x's and get y values, and it's going to take, a good amount of time. Well, we have a new way now, and it's important to understand that this is just one way that we can use to graph these, but this is a great strategy for us. So the first thing I want you to do is focus on the y-intercept. And again, there's nothing for you to write down yet, you're just watching. Okay, remember the y-intercept is at 3, okay, which means that the point that it's at is at 0, 3. Okay, and we just talked about in class how the y-intercept is on the y-axis. So if I go and graph this, I'm going to be able to graph it right there on my graph. Now, when I go ahead now to finish graphing this, we've also talked about slope, and we've talked about how slope equals rise over run, okay? And with a rise, in this case here, with a slope of -2, that means my rise is going to be -2 and my run is going to be 1. So if I have a rise here, I'm going to go down 1, 2, and then over 1. And I can put a point there. And go down 1, 2, and then put a point here. And then go down 1, 2, and then put a point here. And go down 1, 2, and put a point here. Now, there's no exact recipe of you should do 5, you should do 6, you need to do 10 points. There isn't like one specific that I can say you have to do. For what I would tell you, I would say it's always good to do more than less. Okay, notice how I'm going backwards now. I can do the opposite. As long as it stays as a straight line, I can use that as, I can put those points. Okay, so now I go ahead and I draw my line. Make sure I show that it's continuous by adding arrows on both sides. And I've now graphed the linear equation y equals -2x plus 3. Okay. So that is the skill that we're focusing on, okay? So if you switch to the one, now this one's on your paper, and again, I want you to fill this out with me. The first thing, okay, so step 1 is going to be graph y-intercept, okay? So go ahead. We know that my y-intercept is going to be 5, which means it's at the point 0, 5. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and graph it. 0 and then up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I will graph my point right there. Then I'm going to put down here as step 2 is to graph the slope. Okay, so I go ahead. Again, we're looking at rise over run here. So if my slope equals -2 over 3, I know that I'm going to have to go down 1, 2, and over 1, 2, 3. Down 2 over 3. Whoops. Let me erase that little point so I don't confuse you. And again, you should be graphing these points with me. Down 2 over 3. Same thing, I can go the opposite. Over 3, up 2. Over 3, up 2. Once I have a good amount of dots, again, more is better than less. And then I can draw my line, which you should be doing. And it's very important to draw arrows at the end. Okay. Now for the third one, okay, I've go ahead and I've tried to add something that's going to confuse us, I think, at times, okay? And in this one here, if you go in our first step, which is to graph the y-intercept, I didn't provide you with a y-intercept. There's nothing there. So what does that mean our y-intercept is? Well, if we don't put it in our equation, it means it's 0. So my y-intercept is going to be at 0, 0. So I'm going to graph it right there at what we call the origin. Okay, and then for 2, when we graph our slope, okay, graph slope. Again, we're looking at rise over run. And it equals 3 over 1, which means that I have a rise of 3, or I'm going to go up by 1, 2, and 3, and over 1. And then go up 1, 2, 3, and over 1. Go up 1, 2, and 3, and over 1. Go a couple the other way. And once we have our line, or once we have our dots and a good amount of them, we can draw our line with our arrows. Okay, so this is what you just watched here is video lesson 1A, and it is how to graph linear equations without that fancy table and doing all the X's and Y's and making points. All right, thanks for watching.